Welcome, everyone. My name is Nolan Hames. This is one of our special Presentation Guild webinars. We have a regular webinar every month, which is inspired by design, and the next one is going to be Thursday, June 22nd. That and a number of other webinars are members only, but today our special webinar on Prezi with our special guests, who I'm going to introduce in just one moment, is open to the public. So welcome. I know we have some people who are not Guild members, and my next question is, why not? Well, hopefully you'll join. Again, we've got a lot of members-only stuff, but today is open to the public. So I want to introduce our guest speakers for today. They are Lesley Barringer. She is a designer at the Message business in the UK. She lives and breathes presentation, multiple software platforms. She's also part of the team at Presentation Guru. She loves Prezi, she loves PowerPoint, she uses them all the time, but she is definitely a Prezi expert, which is, she's going to share her knowledge on that today. And also with us is Jim Harvey. He's been building and selling expert businesses since since he was a young lad. He's internationally known as a writer, speaker, consultant. He specializes in pitching and presentation, and he helps global businesses sell products, launch products, create award-winning presentations, again, all over the world for all sorts of companies. In 2015, he set up presentationguru.com. If you don't know about it, you absolutely should go there. It's a unique site that I've written for, that I love. It's really gathers together some amazing writers, all on the topic of presentation. So there are just articles after articles and content upon content of really great information on presentation. Started that with Emma Bannister and John Zimmer, and check it out. Absolutely, that's presentation-guru.com. We'll put that in the speaker notes. Before I send it over to Lesley and Jim, I just want to let you know that you can throw in questions at any time into your GoToWebinar panel. We'll also do an official Q&A at the end, but if you've got questions throughout, we'll definitely break in and ask them. And we're also going to do a couple polls throughout, start off with a couple that Jim will tell you about. So I'm going to stop talking at this point and send it over across the pond to Jim and Lesley.
Hi. Hello. Hi there. So yeah, I'm Jim, this is Lesley. We work together with a wider team at the Message business. So welcome to all of you. And before we get going, we just had a couple of questions for you in a poll so that we can fit our webinar to you. Okay? So what's the first poll question now, Lesley?
The first poll question is, are you a designer or a presenter?
Two choices on the screen. Are you a designer or a presenter? Okay. And when we have some answers, then Nolan, I think, is going to shout out the answers to us.
Yep. We've got, so it's the question was, are you a designer or a presenter? And one of the questions is yes. So we've got 63% coming in at yes. I assume that's, well, I don't know. No is 13% and both is 25%. So if somebody said yes, I'm not exactly sure if they were a designer or a presenter or both, but we've got basically, we only have a small fraction, 13%, who are neither.
Okay.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, which could be good. And then the second question?
This is about how many times you've used Prezi to design a presentation. Nolan, I think you may have the actual wording there.
Yeah, how many Prezi presentations have you created? Either none, 1 to 2, or 3 to 10. And I know we got, or actually we've got it's like a little bit more, or 10 or more, or so many that you've lost count. Although I'm not sure if those last couple questions actually made it into the poll, because I only see 3 questions here. But we're getting the vast majority, it seems like, 3/4 of the people have never created a Prezi presentation. We've got a couple of people, 1 to 2, about, a few people, 3 to 10. I'll just speak for myself. I created, you know, probably dozens and dozens, but not lately, probably not in the last couple of years.
Okay. All right.
And then
But
the
the
final.
vast majority are complete neophytes here.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So I think from our thinking that we'll say that 60% of the audience is kind of designer, and some are neither, but mostly presentation designers, and most people have not created very many presents. Now, the really important thing for us is that as you go through and you have questions, ask questions, because we want this to be a conversation with you guys as much as anything else. But what we've done is we have created a story for you using Prezi in its current form, that you can see on your screens now, that we will actually use to present the story that we want to give to you today. And we did it because we wanted you to see Prezi as well. Now, headlines really are that 3 weeks ago, after we planned to do this webinar, Prezi launched its exciting new product. And it's not very good. Okay? So let's just go there right away. If you already have a Prezi account, there might be some there might be some hope. But if you're going to use the new Prezi, it's not hopeless, but we think that it's a step backwards. But it still might, if you're a designer or if you're a presenter, Prezi still might offer you enough to be worth learning how to use it and using it for yourself or with your clients. So bear with us, but there's been a massive change in the last 3 weeks. So anyway.
Hey Jim, what's the terminology on it? You said they launched a new product. Does it have a new name?
It has. So I mean, we explain that a little bit. So old Prezi is they have now called Prezi Classic. Okay. So imagine, you know, that's what you call your grandmother or your grandfather, isn't it? New Prezi they've called Prezi Next. Okay. I suppose you could apply the same logic to your first wife and your second wife.
On that analogy, I'm going to just let you keep going.
I don't mean to be facetious. I don't mean to be rude about it. But I think, you know, let's be really, really clear about this. So you can see from our presentation outline here, which is one thing that Prezi can do. It can give you the sort of big picture to allow you to into various. So we get a bit of context. We have to look back, because actually Prezi past defines Prezi today to some degree. The biggest part of the presentation is where I hand over to Lesley to talk about Prezi present. Where are they now? And then think about the future. But let's go straight into it. Let's.
I'm just going to do some maneuvering.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Just so that we're looking, hopefully, at where
yeah,
you're
let's
presenting.
let's go straight into it. Okay. You driving this?
Well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, context. Okay. In the good old days, so back in 2009, I was looking to create a pitch for a client. It was a high-tech UK company that wanted to create a pitch that was a little bit different, and that was their design brief. And because I'm quite up on it, I found this thing called Prezi on the web, which seemed really, really interesting. A new product by some crazy kind of Eastern European artists that offered potentially a new way of presenting. So I had a look at it, and it was interesting, and we used it as and nobody had seen it before when we used it there. So as part of a pitch to present a modern company to its modern audiences, it was amazing. And Prezi had one trick. You could put everything on a blank canvas and then zoom into it. But that was all that it could do, and it fell over more times than it worked, and it was flaky and awful and whatever, but it had one trick that PowerPoint, of course, couldn't do. And so that became Prezi's one trick. It was apparently, and I'm not saying that it was, a more conversational and visual approach to presentation than death by PowerPoint. And Prezi, in the same way that Apple often defined itself by its enemy, Microsoft, I think Prezi has kind of defined itself by its relationship with Microsoft as well. Its idea was that anything has to be better than a PowerPoint presentation, and then spent the next 9 years proving that that was not true. But anyway, you know, that back in the day, back in 2009, If you wanted to move away from bullet points, Prezi was the thing that could help you do that. And it had big canvas, and it was a response to Death by PowerPoint. So, who invented it? These three, two Peters and one Adam, in Hungary, I think they were artists, and they wanted ways of exploring ideas. So they created this thing out of, I think, Flash at the time, where you could pin pictures on a board and create a path that would move from picture 1 to picture 2, which gave the impression of zooming in. And these were the guys that did it. And I think a lot of Prezi's strengths, but also a lot of their problems, come to the fact that these guys are not presenters. They're artists, right? They're visual communicators, but they're not, and have never had a stand in front of a group of 750 car salesmen in, you know, Wyoming on a Wednesday morning and tried to present something to those people, right? They're artists. And their view was that Prezi helps you organize and deliver your thoughts, okay? And give you more of that aha moment. Okay, that's their thinking. And there was a degree of that was true, okay? And the big idea was you could have this blank canvas, and this is the old Prezi screen, where you could pin stuff on it, create a path that would move you to that thing, and then that thing, and then that thing. And, you know, that's what he wanted, that you could have big picture for context and then zoom in for focus and emphasis. And that's what they created. Okay? It was the new kid on the block, and it was one of the first kind of organic, they called it organic presentations, okay? Meaning not linear. But of course, the only way that Prezi really worked was with a linear path applied to it. But again, you know, if you wanted lots of pictures and you didn't want to use PowerPoint, then Prezi was the thing. And of course, it was one of the first online software as service platforms. Prezi had one massive strength and a massive problem, that because lots of it was being used by all of these funky kind of students and early adopters who wanted to communicate ideas and pictures and zoom and spin, and is actually Prezi pretty quickly got the reputation as it's quite a claim, the presentation software that would make you vomit. Which, you know, and in some ways it was, because you imagine you had all of these spinning and zooming things that didn't really work for an audience, because it zoomed you in really close and then panned across and then zoomed out, and you lost context completely. So criticisms of Prezi, justifiably, was that in the early days it didn't have any structure, where PowerPoint has its slide and its layout structure. It was dizzying because you could make the images spin. It was confusing for the audience, and as a platform it used to be pretty flaky in that it would crash and you could only use it online, which was a bit of a problem. So what did Prezi do? So basically Prezi, over the last 5 or 6 years, and I was a fan but never an uncritical fan, and we started using it with our clients. Almost, if they came to us and said, we want to transfer all of our people over to Prezi, our response would be something like this. Why on earth would you want to do that? But if they came to us and said, we've got a big event, a one-off, we want to create something, maybe it's a presentation, or maybe we're going to video it, that looks different and is beautiful and handles video pretty well and pictures and can add visual movement and space to, then yeah, maybe. But not as your default go-to presentation software for a team of 500 people operating all the way across the States or in Europe, because it's too difficult to learn, it's too flaky, and it isn't PowerPoint. You know? Bottom line, it is not PowerPoint. So Prezi, over time, realized that they needed to do something different. And so they have done something different. They added more templates and more structure and more advice on how to build an effective presentation. And their latest, so how many, 3 weeks ago, something like that?
No, in April, actually.
Okay, longer than that then. Yeah, okay, so in April, what Prezi did was that they launched the new product. But they got to this position here. They got to a position by last year where they had 85 million users apparently across the world. How many of them were actually paying users, I don't know, because there was a real sort of free, lots of free and student users. And there were 325 million Prezis and counting, and they make a lot of this. So there's loads of people using Prezi, fantastic, well done. and there's hundreds of millions of Prezis. Well, they don't go on. Those Prezis are rubbish. But, you know, that's just, if you look on the Prezi website, one of the biggest problems for Prezi was most of them you couldn't use in a corporate setting where you might use a PowerPoint presentation. So that was a real challenge for Prezi. They had users that wanted to do it, and of course by last year they were no longer the new kid on the block. There were so many other things like Google Slides and SlideBean and SlideShare and hundreds of SlideShark bits of cloud-based software that meant that you could share essentially PowerPoint-based stuff. So Prezi was in a real quandary. Now, in terms of Prezi's problems, is that over time, because they criticised PowerPoint so much, they praised creativity and misunderstood structure. And it was something, talking to Echo in planning this presentation, it was almost the fact that the very fact that you're using Prezi meant that your presentation would be better than PowerPoint. And we wrote an article 7 or 8 years ago that basically said a bad presenter with Prezi would be much worse than a bad presenter with PowerPoint, because PowerPoint at least has visual and linear structure. With Prezi, it would just look like somebody had sneezed onto a screen. Lots of kind of blobs and pictures here and smears there. Without visual structure, linear story structure, Prezi would be worse than a bad PowerPoint. They presented themselves as the answer to all of PowerPoint's problems, and of course, really, over the time, created loads of problems for themselves. So they painted themselves into a corner where Prezi, right up until about April, we would have found it easy to say to a client that asked for Prezi, saying yes, and we can make something that is really interesting, useful, and different to PowerPoint, even with Zoom and Morph, than you could with PowerPoint. Now, as you'll see as we go through the presentation, that's slightly changed. Okay, so basically in this webinar, we'll be asking the following questions of Prezi. What is the new Prezi? Because there is a new Prezi. Is it any good? Short answer to the question is, meh. And then should you use it? And the short answer to that question we'll come to at the end of the presentation, basically. But this is a massive turning point for Prezi, and the fact that most of you haven't used it, or used it very much, shouldn't put you off completely. But I think when Lesley, who's the kind of expert user here, will go on and show you, there are still things that it will do differently to PowerPoint, and in some ways better, but not that many. So.
Lesley, as you jump in, I just have a question. Are we looking at the new version or the old version that you're presenting out of?
This is the new version.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. So,
and we had a big debate.
Yeah, I decided to, because of the subject matter and, the fact that lots of people, if they've not used Prezi yet, will only have the option of Prezi Next. It would only be fair and interesting to use the new platform and an actual template that exists.
And I assume to the viewer, it's fairly invisible because you're just seeing a full screen. It's more in the interface and the back end, which I know we'll see. But I'm going to let you dive in and because
exactly.
I want to know more.
Yeah, you're seeing a presentation now, the front end, and Lesley will get a little bit into the back end.
Yeah.
But this, we are using one of their templates exactly as they use it, with all of the tricks or not that Prezi has. Okay?
And that's good to know, because obviously you can customize your own templates, but it's nice to see something that they offer.
Yeah, it's not. I'll be honest, it's not. I did tweak it a little bit, but not. It is available. Yeah.
Okay, well, take it away.
Okay, so basically, what is Prezi? New Prezi, is it any good, and should you use it? And that's really, as a designer, a presenter, or generally as somebody that might use it to communicate. So, over to you, I think, Lesley.
Okay. So, Jim has been following along using the arrows at the bottom as the previous Prezi and the current one as well. If you do want to decide you're going to go off piste, as it were, you want to do the more conversational, or we think, oh, Jim missed a bit in Prezi Past, you can click directly onto the screen and get to the section that you want. there. So as Jim said, we've got old Prezi and new Prezi, and both are a more conversational way of presenting and a more visual approach, which I think expectations have changed, and people in general would veer away from slides or any kind of presentation that had too much text and bullet points. Well, that would be the hope. I know that we still see some bad presentations, but I think that we're sort of changing our ideas, albeit gradually. So yeah, so first if we have a quick look at the classic. So the classic is the old Prezi, and looking at the results of the poll, I don't think anybody has probably got access to the classic, so we'll not spend too much time. I'll whiz by those, but basically it was a blank canvas. You could see it as freedom and a positive thing, but you could also see it as a lack of structure and making a presentation difficult to follow. So yeah, we'll whiz past there. I did have an example of a Prezi Classic, but I don't think that's relevant here. So we'll move on. So I've got a short video to show. Please write messages if everybody's seen it already and we want to skip through, but it's very short. It's only 3 minutes, something like that, and just gives a little bit of an overview of the new platform.
Introducing Prezi Next, our most powerful presentation platform yet. Designed with insight and feedback from our 85 million users, Prezi Next is the full lifecycle presentation platform that allows you to create, present, and analyze your best presentations ever. Here's a little taste of what you get with Prezi Next. When you start a new presentation, you can jump right in by customizing one of our designer-created templates to fit your brand or topic. Each template comes with topics ready for your content. You can expand on each topic by adding subtopics. And unlike a linear slide deck, you can move freely through your presentation to focus on the topics that matter most to your audience. We call this conversational presenting. You can even arrange your content to stay hidden until you're ready to zoom in and reveal it. And there's no need to stick to the big screen. With Prezi Viewer, you can present anywhere, anytime, and on any iOS or Android device. Depending on your plan, you'll also have access to Prezi Analytics, which gives you real-time insight into who's viewing your presentation, who it's shared with, and which parts interest them the most, letting you fine-tune your quality. What are you waiting for? Try Prezi Next for free at Prezi.com and take your presentations to the next level today.
There we go. So that gives you a brief overview of what Prezi Next can do from Prezi's point of view as well. So Prezi Next is a different platform which is more reliable. It's based on an HTML platform rather than a Flash player, which I think is quite old-fashioned now on the Prezi Classic. So it's great. You can create, edit, collaborate, share. They have improved the help and support on Prezi massively with this launch, and there is so much support, information, videos and tutorials to help you get going and to answer most questions, to be fair. It has a desktop app, so you can download on Apple or Microsoft, and this allows you to work. So yeah, we've got a desktop app that can be downloaded, which allows you to work offline. This is only available on the paid subscriptions and is the only way that you would be able to download a presentation, for example, either as a Prezi file or as a PDF. And it does sync to the online account, which is fantastic. The mobile app, which is available in iOS and Android, allows you to present and share. It doesn't have the facility to edit, but works really well for sharing, and it does work really well, and it's useful. The touch screen really lends itself to the conversational style of presenting and being able to hop around to the different sections of the presentation on the screen on the mobile device. So that's a real improvement, in my opinion, the quality of the app. It has lost the editor part of it, but I'm not quite sure how useful those are on tiny devices, other than changing a bit of text maybe. In practical terms, I'm not sure how great that would be anyway. So Prezi Next has changed. So I'll stop saying changed actually, because we've moved away from the classic. So Prezi Next has topics. So you have the background image. I will dip in and we'll have a look at this. So I'll nip through quite quickly, but it has topics to structure your content. I think structure is brilliant. I'm a bit obsessed by structure and breaking things down into sections. My children will vouch for this with their homework, and I always think if you can break a message down into logical sections, you're most of the way there when you're making a presentation. So when your content is there, you can use topics to then organize that information. There are two different types. You'll see here there's one called the planet, which is the one I've mostly used, but I have used some stacks, but that's a bit more subtle. You might not have noticed those. Yeah, so you basically choose which topic and go ahead and enter the content. It does have some advantages, as I say. It helps structure, and people who need that structure, it will help. It's also a little bit limiting too. Once you've entered the information into the topic, you can't change the topic type, so you have to copy and paste and delete the previous, etc.
Do you want to demonstrate that sort of that little bit that you've gone through there in terms of just go out of the thing and just show?
Yeah, if that would work. So
I think that would really help.
let's go. So what I'll do then, we'll go into Prezi.com and we'll open a new template, and then we can look at it from that point of view. So
hey Jim, while we're doing that, there was a question about enterprise usability, or a lot of people are concerned with, a lot of companies are concerned with security and hosting things in the cloud. Do you have experience with corporations sort of implementing this on an enterprise level?
We do, and so two very large US corps that we work with, JP Morgan and State Street from the financial sector, are of course hugely regulated in terms of information security and stuff. So both of those have approved Prezi for use, and the thing that they were very concerned about was cloud storage. Mm-hmm. So I can't go into too many details, but essentially what they've done is they have forbidden any presentations that are made to be stored online by anybody. So what we have to do if we create a presentation for them is create it, delete it from online, and give them a hard copy of that presentation that they can store as a standalone Prezi file on their servers.
And then to edit it, they're using the standalone software, not the online version, which is totally possible.
Yeah, they will allow you to edit with the online stuff, but they will not allow you to store it.
Actually, it does vary. One of those companies allows online creation, but the other, we have to use the offline app, and then the only time it's allowed online is when we send it to them via WeTransfer, and they don't edit it at all.
And that workflow will still be possible with the new version, Prezi Next, correct?
Yes, in the same way. If people have got a Plus account or more, you can download. You can do everything offline.
So certainly Prezi it just requires some more hoops, but that's great to know that it is possible. If JP Morgan is making it, you know, you just have to get the right people committed to.
Yes.
Well, that's great. Okay.
But they were hard to convince, and it's something we were saying earlier.
Of course. Yeah.
It started in Europe, so those two, you know, big American companies. Prezi started in Europe, and I think the US in using Prezi in large corps is probably 2 to 3 years behind the UK, just in terms of prevalence. But the US has tended to be very challenging on security and, you know, those issues. But it is possible, as you say.
Okay, great. All right, back to you.
So hopefully everybody can see that we're in our Prezi account, and we can open a new presentation. You can also open a new folder and do it via there when you're organizing your files. I'd recommend you do organize your files. So if we click on new presentation, and you'll see down the side here that we've got, I think there are 100 apparently templates down the side, and they varies from quite formal or relaxed, or, you know, so there should be something in there that you'd be interested in choosing.
Yeah, and if you show one of those, how much can you customize those templates? Let's say you go into one and you don't like the background image. What can you do?
Yeah, so you can change the background image. If you look back here, you can see the image, the template that I used had a very different background image, and I altered that. You can change colors. You can change.
Just click into one of those.
Yeah, yeah. So let's have a look at this one. You can also preview the template by clicking through, and it will give you a feel of what's available. And these assets inside the template, and you can copy and use those in different parts of your presentation as well.
So basically, all of these things here are. You want to change the text. If you click on intro, they're placeholders basically.
Yeah, yeah.
So you click on the word intro and you put your own text in
there.
there.
Exactly. So you can click through, have a look at what's available in the template, think, yeah, okay, I'll use this one. I've never used this one, obviously. No. So we'll click Use Template. And hopefully it'll speed up a little bit. Okay, so this is the work window, and down the side here on the left you can see the different sections that we've got: the intro, about, programs, and timeline. If we want to look a little bit more closely at what's inside those, we can just click on that and it will take us in there. And as Jim rightly says, we can change the wording. We can.
Lesley, I'm sorry to jump in, but those sort of slide-looking things on the left are really states, right, of animation. They're really just parts of your canvas that you have defined as wanting to zoom in on, correct? Because I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions is, you know, somebody sees the screen and they're like, oh, it's slides because it looks like PowerPoint, but it's not. It's simply states, animated states.
And these are different. They're different to PowerPoint, but they are more similar now in that I haven't positioned them. I haven't chosen or created the shape of it. Prezi in this particular template has chosen where those are going. And so this is a little window into what that would show. It's like a PowerPoint in that it's showing that's the little window of what you would see at that particular point in the presentation.
I mean, we think about it in terms of trying to explain to people. Imagine that that's your camera. Essentially, what you're doing with Prezi is you're moving the camera closer to the image, further away to one side. So there's a transition, and there's that. And essentially, all you're doing, each one of these things on the side is a view, basically. It is a pre-formatted view of assets that you have placed on this canvas.
And you can still move them around, change the order. That just determines in what order you move around your canvas.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So as you can see, I don't know if you noticed there, when I moved the intro, let's move it to the end, I'm moving that on the window, but you'll see that these automatically update. So it's showing the order and what you will actually see. And this is the thing in Prezi Next, these are the topics. So the topic that is there to organize your content. So it's your structure. So the topic is the structure. You've got the topic, and then you've got the path and the order that will follow.
It's a lot to keep straight in your head, because it's definitely a different way of thinking.
As straight as it could be. Yeah.
So basically, it just changes of view. So if we go, you go back up.
So basically, it's allowing you spaces to put your content, and then it's got a path that it will follow.
Right.
So as Jim said, we can click on each one, and each one has the main topic, and then it has a subtopic, which
and that is new to Prezi Next, correct? Because that is not familiar to me from the classic. So
this is the new. I think this is what Prezi have responded to the criticisms on the lack of structure, and there were a lot of bad Prezis out there where, you know, even the most organized message could get lost in, you know, the mess of what people may think, oh, this is a really good idea, I'll spin here and I'll do this and I'll, you know.
Because we have these subtopics, is there an overall map view where you can sort of see those, you know, laddered down topics?
Yes, you see, this is one of my frustrations, and really was a frustration creating the Prezi for the webinar, is no. Basically,
let's just say that again for a minute.
Yeah.
There is no view, as you as a designer can have, that will show you everything on the canvas. So what they've done, Prezi has automated this to such a degree that it has made it considerably less customizable.
Okay. So it's good to know. I mean, these are sort of cons and negatives, but it's important to know this. So
in reality, if there's genuinely 85 million users out there, I would say 84.7 million of them have no ability whatsoever. So they will be better off with this approach, I think, won't they? Do you think?
Yeah, I think it's just an approach, you know, it's just a way of working, and I genuinely think Prezi will respond to the feedback from users and make improvements and change the way that it works. Because to be fair, you know, in the past they have made lots of different changes, and they keep you updated of those changes on the website so that you can find out what's.
Let me ask you this question, and we definitely don't want to go over, but let me ask you this question about how Prezi is with regard to updates, because when I was working with Prezi a few years ago, one of my frustrations was that they didn't seem to be responding, and they didn't seem to be innovating and adding new features nearly as quickly as they should. And that's one of the reasons I moved away from it, because it just seems stuck, like a little thing here, a little thing there, but you know, nothing big, nothing significant.
It's interesting. So I saw one of the Peters speak at the presentation summit 2 years ago. Did you see him speak?
Yeah.
No, yeah. Interesting. So I've met him before, but I met him again, and so we'd written stuff for him. We had created templates for them. We've been a massive fan and whatever. And we heard him speak, and you realised that actually the chief executive of this company in those days really wasn't that interested in what the users had to say. And I think that's a philosophical point, that he had a really, really clear idea about how this was to be used. Now, us as users, we have different needs. We want to create presentations that work in the real world, challenging audiences for corporates to use. I don't think Prezi still has that sensitivity to its users. Now, it's made improvements, but I think it's left a lot of its biggest users. Whereas I found with Microsoft, weirdly, a much bigger organisation, of course. My experience of Microsoft is, you know, they'll always tell you when it might be, you know, February 2022, or we're never going to do that, but they're pretty good at keeping you up to date.
Yeah.
With Prezi, it's like, you know.
And this feels more like the Apple philosophy of we'll tell you what you like, and that has led to, you know, Final Cut being dumbed down and other, you know, software, Aperture simply vanishing.
I think that's a really, really good analogy.
Yeah.
We know, and in some cases, of course, they do.
I mean,
in some cases they do know better, and in other cases, yeah, they don't.
Yeah. I'm hopeful. Being on the forums and seeing the responses, which are very similar to my responses, you know, mostly designers saying, you know, we need this back, we need that. You know, I'm hopeful. Fingers crossed, anyway, that will be put back. So yeah. So going back, we went into a topic, and each topic can have as many subtopics as you like, or none at all. You can choose that. There are presets to each topic and subtopic in color, and you can edit and alter those. As Nolan noticed earlier, we can't zoom out. We need to go back to the overview to have another look. So what Prezi have done, they've standardized the menus. So I think they've sort of looked a little bit at what PowerPoint has, and so now we've got file and choices and edit and undo and insert and options. There obviously some of those are editable, others not. Now we can't insert music or a voiceover, but we can put video and links, etc. in there. Another big thing that Prezi have added, which is a bonus, is the animations tab at the top here. So let me look. Let's go back into a particular bit, and if we want to animate, make appear or disappear the about word, we can go on to either insert and choose animation, or we can right click and choose add animation. And this is very new and has the right hand column, so we can still zoom. So although it's not as flexible as a zoom, in terms of you can zoom anywhere that you like at any time, we can still add zoom areas, and we can add, I'll just add fade in here, and it just shows you an example of the fade in. And I'll also add, let's add a zoom area, and you can change the zoom area, you can make it smaller, move it around, and then we can present and see what that looks like. So it's obviously gone, it appears, and then we'll zoom to it. So we've still got those features, so you could still zoom and pan for distinction and for emphasis, but because of the way that Prezi's organised it, it makes it less manageable if you zoom here, there and everywhere. It's got to be within a topic. So let's go back. And
to be fair, for those people out there that are thinking, you know, you might want to explore it, you might even be doing it as we go, it's something where it is really easy just to switch it on and try it, and nobody's going to get killed or hurt or whatever. But we would recommend that you do, to understand how it works. You know, you've got content on a canvas, you've got these views on the left-hand side that navigate the camera to look at that particular part of the canvas and zoom in and zoom out as you want it to. And that's how it's like a three-dimensional whiteboard, for want of a better word.
Yeah. Okay. And as we briefly mentioned earlier, you can change the background image, which can transform, you can delete content, so it's totally flexible in that way. So should we go back to the main presentation now? Okay. Here we are.
So this is our design view of the presentation now.
Yeah.
And we're now back into the present.
Okay. So we covered topics and the subtopics there. So adding content, we've talked about text images, background images. You can add MP4 files, you can add a YouTube link, but as always with YouTube, you need to have a reliable internet connection because it will draw on that. The selection of images that Next supports is fine. A big drawback to the new Prezi is that it's very, very limited on what you can do with an image inside once it's inside Prezi. So literally all you can do is rotate or resize an image. You can't crop, you can't add any effects. I'm just thinking about what PowerPoint, for example, would do. There are also fewer icon shapes and symbols. But again, I think these are issues that Prezi are going to need to address and deal with if they want to keep their supporters. So we covered animation and zoom. Sometimes the background image on the templates may be what's classed as a 3D image. So as the presentation zooms in, the image isn't staying in one place. So you may think I'm going to zoom into that circle, and when it does zoom in, it's somewhere else. So that would just be a case of exploring with the individual template or adding your own background image. Yeah, so I was just wanting to hang on. So the ideal, we want to hang on to the freedom and the structure if possible. To have both would be fantastic because, you know, I think both have got a value, and I totally understand that. I guess if you were going to prioritize the structure and the effectiveness of a presentation would come first, but if we could have both, then that would be amazing. So in a second, I'm going to hand back over to Jim, but you know, the question would be, is Prezi for you? I guess I don't want to sound negative because it's very dynamic and it has lots of positives. And a little bit later on, we'll sort of move on to the areas to consider. Over to you, Jim.
Okay. So in terms of you know where we are now, before we get on to questions, let's just summarise a little bit from you. Prezi is one way of creating a presentation, as we know. There are millions more ways of doing that these days. And we asked these questions at the start. What is Know Prezi? Is it any good, and should you use it? So let's answer those questions. Know Prezi, to summarise everything, is a lower specification version of the old one. It's easier to learn, it's more structured with more templates, but fewer features. And it's less flexible and customizable. Okay? Is it any good? In England, we have a saying it's a curate's egg, good in parts. And I think for the novice user who isn't a presentation designer, there's lots of reasons why using Prezi Next as opposed to Prezi Classic will keep you in your job and give you a better support than Prezi Classic, which would make you look like some crazed drunken loon just throwing pictures up on the screen. But the idea would be that you've got that flexibility, but with more freedom to customize, and that's particularly for the designers amongst you out there. You will find this frustrating, that you'd have to find lots of different ways to make some of the amazing Prezis that Classic was capable of making. Room for improvement, yeah, it's gone some of the way between bridging the gap between Prezi and PowerPoint, because Prezi was never going to be that ubiquitous presentation software tool. It's made a few small steps in that direction, but in the same time, PowerPoint has made massive leaps towards Prezi. It's kind of taken most of the things that Prezi could do and done them kind of nearly as well. and easier and more stable. Functionality of Prezi Next is not great, and we think it's lost some of its flexibility. So, should you use it as a designer? Yes, if on a case-by-case basis. If your clients need Prezi for a one-off, then yeah, you could make a case of using it. Let's go back again. But if, you know, as a presenter, I don't see, if you don't use it already, I don't see why you go to all of the trouble of learning Prezi when it's simpler and easier and it's more flexible to use PowerPoint. So that's, you know, that's our honest view. You might disagree, and we might get some questions about that. But actually, the community, the Prezi community, is kind of agreeing with us at the moment. This is quite positive from a guy that looks a bit too much like Bill Cosby to be true. But
yes, I think we can all agree he's not an actual Prezi user. I used an image of a guy. Okay,
but basically, this person's saying, look, yeah, I can do what I used to do on Classic, but I can't do it as well. But you know, there are some things that they've done that work for them. That's a UK user, Prezi user from New York. Well, a bit of a whinge really. Non-intuitive for me as a fully versed Classic designer. I'm continuing to use Classic, and if it goes away anytime soon, I may too. This is the big thing. If you out there have got Prezi and got a Classic account, keep it. Because if you haven't, you can't have one. You're forced into Next. So, you know. And
also on that point, they are totally different platforms, so you can't use one in the other. So if you've got a Prezi Classic presentation that had been created, you can't then use it in Next.
So if you have an old Prezi Classic, you can't import it into the new one?
No.
Wow. Okay.
It's flash-based, yeah, it's flash-based. The Classic and the new one is a totally different.
It's HTML5, right?
Yeah, HTML5. I tried adding a link within, you know, tried to embed, trying to be clever and get around the subject. Right. So yeah.
So we do have some questions I want to get to. So with that move to HTML5, can you import, what do you import basically? People are asking how you get charts in there, how do you get graphs, how do you get iconography? Are you importing SVGs, AIs, SWFs?
Yes.
It has changed.
Will it do vector?
No.
The new one will not do vector at all?
No, you can't do a Swift or those kind of files. It literally is the ones, the JPEG, the
PNGs.
So that means if you bring in a PNG icon, whatever, and you want to zoom in on it, it's going to get pixelated. It's going to get blurry.
Yeah, it needs to be super good quality. Also, Prezi had worked on being able to create charts and tables within Prezi Classic, but hasn't got that functionality in Prezi Next.
So it's the same thing, PDF, PNG. So if you want, I guess PDF is your one way to get SVG kind of resolution stuff. But
okay. By the way, I just want to, Marshall, can you ask your question again? I accidentally deleted it. Lesley and Jim, what about charts and graphs?
Yeah, same.
So you can't make those within Prezi. That's something that they've lost. And again, I think people are campaigning to get that function back, because it had improved and you could actually design, edit, and adapt charts and, you know, all those kind of things in Prezi. So I'm not quite sure why they haven't done that.
I've just had a great idea. We've created an aftermarket in Prezi Classic accounts.
You've created a what?
Created an aftermarket.
Oh, aftermarket,
yeah.
Because all these people that don't have it, you can rent mine for $150 a month, which is cheaper than Prezi.
Can you confirm that there's no Arabic or Hebrew support? That was one question from Jude when I was in Israel.
Hi Jude, how are you doing? Jude's another writer on Presentation Guru. Yes.
There's no support.
No, sorry. Yes, we can confirm that there isn't. There may.
It's on the cards, though. That is one of the things that's been identified and they're working on at the moment.
Got it. What about like diagrams? Like there's no process graphic, there's no smart art. That all has to be imported from somewhere else, right?
But you do have some icons and images, don't you, that you could, but it's a really
It's
limited.
very
You know,
few.
like you could like
Again,
paste
I,
it together or
I would
something.
say it's got 20%, 10%, 20% of the icons that it used to have, but you can't edit the color of those shapes.
Marshall's got a good question. So, you know, they make a big thing about how many millions and millions of users they have. I forget the actual number, but what's your guess as to
7.6 million users.
yeah, what's your guess as to how many active users they have? Because quite honestly, I'm sure I still have an account. I guess I'm counted as a user. I haven't used it in 2 years.
Yeah, do you know, I wouldn't know. That would just be a guess. I would imagine it is a fraction. Obviously, if it's a paid account, people are much more likely to be either using it or
But
canceling.
they won't give that information out.
No.
Yeah, so
I mean, the other answer to that question to me is I look at this and all the way along, you wonder what their business model is. Because to me, this is moving, seems to me to be moving there, and please, if you're out there listening or whatever, tell us. But it seems to me that you are moving your customers to the lower, cheaper, freer end of the market. Whereas, and I know there are more users than there are designers out there, but I think I'd just be really interesting in the commercials. I mean, we had a little quiz earlier, didn't we, about costs? Because I think this is the stuff about Prezi. It's, you know, we try hard to be balanced, but it's hard to be really positive about Prezi Next versus Prezi Classic. Then you start looking at the money. And we talked about, and I'll just show you the stuff really. So Prezi Plus in the top here, let's click on it and zoom in. Have a look at those onions. Right. Left-hand side, standard £7. Well, it's about $7 at the moment, isn't it? Seeing as our economy's in the toilet. But you know, £7 a month standard user. There is a free account, but frankly, only a student would want that. $19 a month for expert presenters plus your own branding and offline access. Woo, 20 quid a month, and then premium £59 a month plus. Now maybe if you have got an online marketing, you know, stuff and analytics is important to you, $59 a month. But anyway, those are the numbers, and let's just put that into. You probably guessed, right? I'm not paid for by Microsoft, but you compare that to an Office 365 professional account. You know, for us in the UK, essentially $9.40 a month for business premium account, where you get all of that stuff. I cannot see the value.
Now there is still a free version, but it's very, very limited, right?
yeah.
Really limited, only online. You can't. It's got Prezi branding all over it. So again, I think only a student
Right.
would. I think this is the answer. Students love Prezi. We are on my site where we used to create Prezi templates and stuff. We're still getting 50,000 page views a month simply for Prezi templates.
Yeah.
So there's massive demand out there, but I think they're students.
The key thing for the free one as well is that you can't make them private. So whatever you, you know, whatever you create, the whole, you know,
The world can see.
can see. Yeah.
Which, from a business perspective, is just a simple non-starter.
Yeah.
You can't even tell your boss, hey, let me try this and as a test. No, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. They do have a free trial, so the paid account, so you could give that a go. Yeah.
So what are your parting words? Because I do want to let people go on the hour here.
Our parting words are: look, if you want some more stuff, if you go back to that one there, there's loads of stuff that we'll share this links to from Prezi to me to Presentation Guru website, where we do try and be fair to Prezi on all of those kind of things. You can download sort of books and stuff on it as well. But I think, in a nutshell, Lesley,
I would say if you're going to give Prezi a go, wait a little while, because I genuinely believe that things will improve and some of the functionality will go back in, and then I think you can give it a go. But remember that PowerPoint, Zoom and Morph, and you know, in the meantime you can create an interactive. Don't go back to bullet points just because you know Prezi's not fantastic at the moment.
And this webinar was wonderful. I'm really happy we got an inside look. We got your honest opinion of, you know, just the software side, should we use this and where it's going. One thing, maybe one last thing I'll say is, because the animation is always there, you're always moving, I honestly don't know if this is great for webinars because of the bandwidth and the lag. Because when we do, you know, if you do a webinar in PowerPoint, you usually remove all animation. You don't really have that option here.
So because we can't see the lag, because it's moving fine for us, I didn't realize that there was a lag.
Yeah, so, and it's gonna be different. Some people, you know, maybe not so much. You know, I know on mine it was a little jerky, but that's not a function of Prezi. That's a function of just bandwidth and webinars.
I'm a little jerky as well, and, you know.
And on that note, so thank you very much. We had a lot of interest and a lot of good questions. So thank you guys so much for this. And if somebody does need a Prezi expert, I think I know where they're going.
Thank you.
Well, listen, thanks to everyone. Have a great afternoon, morning, or evening, wherever you are. And yeah, see you soon.
Thank you.
Okay, next episode, Thursday, June 22nd at 2 p.m. That's going to be inspired by design. All right, thank you guys. Take care.
See you, bye.